I now want to call on the party leader, Deputy Brendan Howlin TD, to address conference. Brendan Howlin.
Good evening, everybody. I want to open my own remarks with a few words of thanks. I want to thank our hard-working staff and the very many volunteers who have worked tremendously hard to mount this conference this weekend and to run the supporting events that will sustain us, I think, into the small hours of tonight and tomorrow night. I want to thank Dublin Bay South for hosting us, Mary Freehill, Councillor Mary Freehill, for her words of welcome, and Councillor Dermot Lacey, and also Kevin Donoghue, who Mary has already said will be running for us in the local elections. And of course, my colleague, Senator Kevin Humphreys, whom I am very confident will be joining us in Dáil Éireann after the next election. I hope none of you have upset Kevin by booking into an Airbnb this weekend. Though seriously, it's that type of campaigning that Labour Party politicians excel at, identifying real problems affecting real people and finding solutions. For 2 years, Kevin has campaigned to regulate short-term lets, and finally, the government has heard him and is acting on his recommendations. And not least, I want to thank all of you for travelling here to conference this evening. I know that travelling across Ireland is more difficult now, with Shane Ross as Minister for Transport. At least I think he's a minister. He's listed, at least on the government website, as one. Although I do recall his claim that he's not responsible for the Bus Connect system. And apparently, he was planning to make a submission on it to himself. It's just one example of how the current government is, in fact, a shambles. There's only one positive fact, I suppose, about Minister Ross being Minister for Transport, in that he isn't Minister for Housing or Minister for Health. And which is worse, housing or health right now? Yesterday, Micheál Martin and Leo Varadkar's teams were negotiating more years of so-called confidence and supply. But who would have any confidence in this government? What have they delivered? They inherited an economy that was well on the way to recovery. But they don't know how to use that opportunity, so eloquently laid out by our party chair, that had been given to them to make the necessary, real, substantial changes to improve the lives of our people. They are, both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, conservatives in every sense of that word. Labour is different. Our conference theme, written up here in all the banners on the way in, is a new republic. It's not a new theme for Labour. There'll be one or two older heads in this room who will recall it. My friend Brendan Corish had a few things to say about a new republic. It was his vision, and it is our vision. It is Labour vision of what a real republic might look like. Labour's optimism for Ireland's future never gets old. We're the party that constantly strives for a better future for all our people. And we don't rest on our laurels. Although I might make an exception for the recent presidential contest, where our own Michael D. Higgins increased his vote despite a lower turnout. I know many people, as the General Secretary have said in this room, and in branches and in labour organisations across the nation campaigned to ensure Michael D's re-election. He represents so much that is good about Labour tradition: unflinching commitment to his principles, which are our principles, the intellectual capacity to grapple with the complex challenges, the ever-changing challenges that we face as a community and as a society, and genuine concern that you know for the welfare of others, especially the most vulnerable. Contrast that with Peter Casey's Trumpian tactics, grabbing headlines by picking whatever vulnerable group he picks on next to bully. I look forward to a magnificent further 7 years being represented in Áras an Uachtaráin by Michael D. Higgins. As was said too, Labour was vindicated when the results of the recent referendum came in to remove the 8th Amendment to the Constitution. Labour was at the forefront, including Michael D. and Mary Robinson, among others, in the Senate, campaigning against putting that restrictive clause into our Constitution in the first place. And I was privileged as a young senator to be among those number. It was the fulfillment of many people's lives' work to see that amendment removed, to allow medical need and women's health be the priority. I too pay tribute to Jan O'Sullivan and Ivana Bacek in particular for their lifelong campaigning on this issue. But we can't stop there. One of the reasons we will hold a special session tomorrow morning on the future of women's health is to map out what needs to be done to protect and improve the welfare of all the women of the nation. Not just in terms of reproductive health, but also in response to the cervical check scandal and the recommendations so strongly and clearly set out in the Scally report. In our new republic, we will build a single-tier, publicly funded and publicly owned healthcare system. Labour is committed to driving forward the vision of healthcare that was agreed across all parties in the Sláinte Care report. In our Ireland, all workers would have decent pay so they can live with dignity. That's why we produced a detailed set of policy proposals on how we would ensure decent work for all, which we will discuss on Sunday morning. Not least are proposals, as again our chairman has outlined, to support collective bargaining, a pivotal tool to ensure workers' rights. In our vision for the future, people will be able to afford to buy or rent a decent home. We all know too well so many people denied now that basic right. A decent home should be a solid foundation for everyone upon which to build their lives. Insecurity of tenure, fear of rent increases undermines people's ability to save money, to move ahead with their lives, to even plan for tomorrow. Labour has identified how we would raise a very large sum of money, 16 billion euros, to directly commission and build 80,000 affordable homes over the next 5 years. It can be done if there is the will to do it. Labour would tighten regulation for private landlords, not give them more tax breaks. Only Labour has the will to end the vision of homelessness and to deliver affordable housing. Even from opposition, we continue to advance important pieces of legislation, even in this dysfunctional Dáil. Sean Sherlock has produced a bill on banning plastic materials and microbeads. Our bill to outlaw online bullying has made advances. Ivana's bill to advance the gender pay equality agenda have all pushed the government into responding and to take on our agenda. Alan Kelly's bill in support of microbreweries is now the law of the land. It will expand a sector to create jobs right across communities. We know that Brexit put thousands of jobs at risk. In particular, it risks jobs in the food industry and in tourism. And these are jobs that often are outside of the main urban areas. Labour is wide awake to the risks faced by rural Ireland and by smaller towns. And we have consistently been ahead of those seeking a clear response to these challenges. We've been campaigning on these issues. We're pushing the government to restore town government in time for next May's local elections. A large majority of TDs across the Dáil supported our bill to bring back town government, and we will continue to push it until it becomes the law of the land. Because Labour delivers at local government level. You can visit any number of local areas and see, finally, examples of social housing being built. Often, social housing actually allocated by Alan Kelly or Jan O'Sullivan and supported and advocated for by Labour councillors on the ground. The record shows that Labour has an impressive record of delivery, far in excess of other parties in local government. But we do need reinforcement. We have a fine selection of new candidates for the local elections. I've travelled to a number of selection conventions already, the most recent ones this week in Tralee, Dublin and Waterford recently. I look forward to travelling to every part of the country as we build up our momentum and campaigns for the local elections. 43 local candidates have been selected to date. We will add many, many more, but let's get them all elected. We have 23 Dáil candidates elected, more to come. We've opened the process to select our European candidates, and a number of excellent contenders have already put their names forward in each of the constituencies for consideration by the membership. So we are ready for whatever election comes next. We're looking to the future of our country. So much has been achieved in the last 100 years. There's been vast improvements in education and health outcomes for our people, but there remains a tremendous inequality. Not everyone has anything like the same opportunities. Wealth is still concentrated in too few hands, and climate change looms as an existential challenge to our very way of life. So, there's plenty for Labour to do. Our vision of a new republic is in tune with the diverse place that Ireland has now become. Thankfully, people will always need decent jobs, decent working conditions. People will need a government system that is neutral with respect to ethnicity or religion, but which delivers services impartially to all our people. Labour has a lot to offer. I'm proud to lead a party that has done so much to advance decent jobs, decent standard of livings, and the life chances of ordinary people. I'm proud of our long-time members who are the backbone of this party, up and down the country, who have kept Labour going in good times and in bad, and I meet them everywhere I go. I'm proud of the many candidates, young and not so young, that we put forward as our torchbearers in all the elections to come. Torch carriers for decency, for justice, for equality. United, we have shaped the last century. Let's shape the next one.